The ZA Tech Show is made possible by Snapdragon, the all-in-one mobile processor. To win a tablet or smartphone, visit www.zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon. And by Sharp. Check out the amazing new Sharp Interactive LED at www.sharpinteractive.co.za.
Good evening and welcome to episode 219 of the ZA Tech Show. I am Sam Beckbessinger and I will be your lovely hostess this evening. And thank you very much for joining us live if you are. It is Monday the 30th of July. I think this is still running. Sorry, my bad. Anyway, Monday the 30th of July, and thank you for taking a break from watching weird and obscure sports on the Olympic Games if you are listening to us this week. And speaking of weird and obscure, joining me on the panel this evening is the lovely Mr. Craig Wilson. Hi, Craig.
Good evening, Sam.
How you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
Good.
It's nice to be back.
Craig joins us from Tech Central, and it's always a pleasure to have him here because he goes to every single event in the tech world. Isn't that right, Craig?
Most of them, yeah.
Most of them,
Certainly
yeah.
too many.
And also joining us tonight is the whitest, hattest hacker that I know, Mr. Domonic White. Hi, Dom. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Sam.
And we have to give special thanks to Dom, not only for bringing 3 laptops to the ZA Tech Show, because heaven knows one would not be sufficient, but also because he's joining us with even through his jet lag, because he just got back from Las Vegas from the Black Hat Conference. So we're going to get him to tell us all about that in a little bit. Okay. But let's plunge right into the news, the tech news. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually not that tech newsy, but since it's what everyone's been talking about, let's talk about the Olympics and specifically how technology has been used in the Olympics. Interesting stuff. So definitely the most broadcasted, tweeted Olympic Games of all time, right?
Infuriatingly so.
Yes, indeed. In fact, someone has brought out a Chrome plugin, if you need one, that blocks any mention of the Olympics from the internet for you. It replaces it with soothing colored blocks.
I worry about these blockers, though, because there's got to be something else with Olympic in it that I'm actually interested in that it might block as well.
Olympic bedroom sports.
Or something, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Although, actually, some of them look like that, right? I've got a great shot today of some of the faces from the divers that they pull mid-dive. And, they're pretty akin to...
My favorite are the kind of featherweight female weightlifters. These tiny, tiny little Chinese women, and they pick up 170 kilograms above their head. It's incredible.
Yeah, I can imagine uses for this.
Craig. Anyway, so apparently the Olympic Games is generating 6 gigs of multimedia data every second that has to be carried by the infrastructure around the stadiums.
Oh, wow.
Hardcore.
It's just nuts, yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. So apparently the system's been holding up pretty well, even though everyone has been tweeting and everything, apart from the cycling, because there's so many people standing along the routes for the cycling and trying to twit-pick the whole thing, that it was actually slowing down the information getting to the commentators. So they weren't properly able to report on what was happening because people were going so crazy with the Instagram.
Yeah, I heard they actually were asking people to sort of be a little bit more reserved and not tweet. So
reserve the tweet. No, you can't be reserved on Twitter.
Right.
The problem is then they'll broadcast that they need to be reserved now. It's like when you tell somebody to shh in a stadium and everyone starts going shh.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Everyone stop tweeting on Twitter. Yeah.
I'm now going to tweet less.
It was cool seeing Tim Berners-Lee at the opening ceremony. It was a nice little...
So I missed, there was something that happened with him, like he tweeted something and people had pixel panels in the crowd and flashed it up.
What?
I heard about this, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, probably unsurprisingly, I managed to miss the opening ceremony entirely. I was at a housewarming and didn't see it.
No,
I missed it too.
I've only seen, all I know about it is what I've read about it.
Yeah.
On Twitter. Of course.
Weirdly.
It's always correct.
Yeah.
Always correct.
I don't
Just
think
like
we should
Wikipedia.
go into too much detail about how one could hypothetically watch the Olympic Games and live stream it on the internet if one didn't have a TV. We probably shouldn't
You
talk
mean
about that.
using theoretical things like BBC iPlayer?
Yeah, or theoretical things like stream2watch.me, But we obviously wouldn't talk about those.
No.
No, so we're not going to. Instead, Dom, I want you to tell us all about the Black Hat Conference. What is happening with all the cowboys running around and doing black hatty things?
Cowboys.
What is it like to be at a conference with that many hardcore hackers?
Well, I don't know if there's that many hardcore hackers. So, like, DEF CON had 16,000 attendees.
Jeez.
DEF CON trounced Black Hat this year in terms of attendees. But so DEF CON's cheaper and it's more about the scene. So you'll see somebody with luminous green hair at DEF CON. At Black Hat, you'll see that same person in a suit. And they need to pay like $3,000 in dollar terms to attend. So it's like Black Hat's more corporate. Black Hat, there was some really interesting stuff that happened. So there always is. The big difference with like security conferences to, I don't know, other people's conferences is you've got essentially scientists presenting research. So it's not somebody standing up talking about how they think about things and everyone's saying that's a new way to think about things.
Sure.
It's somebody going, I did this work, these are the results I have, or this is a tool I built to do it, which makes it like a lot more tangible.
So tell us about some of the research that was presented this year and the cool tools. And
so there's a lot of tools relating to what we call post-exploitation. So once you've got the initial hack, and now you need to pivot around on an internal network going after the jewels, there was a lot of stuff related
jewels
to
in this
that,
case being data, obviously.
which probably won't be too interesting to most listeners. But the nail in the coffin for Windows Active Directory's what's called NTLM authentication is there. South Africans are generally even behind that. But there's just some really interesting stuff around post-exploitation. And so those of us worrying about antivirus and things like that just know like the hackers are building tools for after that. Like that's just become so passé when people are almost looking at ways to get in to move around once they're in, which is just it's interesting. I think people who don't do security don't see that side of things. The one big news item is Dr. Charlie Miller presented his research on NFC, near field communication, and in his most sort of one-liner takeaway, basically could put an RFID thing next to what was that one done? It was a Google Nexus, and full remote code execution, full control of your machine. But he just did there's a lot more around it. Did some really interesting analysis of NFC, and he found that Google's built-in tags app was pretty robust, but didn't do much. All of the third-party apps, like Google's Beam thing, was just ripe for exploitation because it loaded all these third-party things. So the thing that actually got it was a vulnerability in WebKit that could be exploited. But some really interesting things like you could turn on Bluetooth on someone's phone, and then all the Bluetooth vulnerabilities are there. So interesting stuff. Somewhat limited in that you have to be near the phone because it's RFID.
It sounds like a lot of conversation generally was about phones and security thereof, right?
Yeah. So mobile's a huge topic, and it's but it's almost a huge topic because people make it a huge topic. So it's quite interesting. Like I went to an accomplished researcher doing a talk on evading web application firewalls. There weren't a lot of people there, but like I know he's just got a track record of really good research, and his talk was excellent. So those of you deploying web application firewalls, it's probably something to look at because this is a guy who builds them. But the second it had something to do with mobile and standing room only, which is kind of interesting, and both are equally relevant.
Is that just because it's newer and it's more personal as well? So fears are I don't know, they cut a little bit deeper.
Yeah, look, it's got a whole bunch of untested code, big attack surface available for you. So there's that. It's got everything on it. All your passwords, all your you've all heard it before, but it's sitting in your pocket. So there's those kind of aspects. But then it's also what one of our mentors, Haroon, often calls management by in-flight magazine. So, the big buzzword at the moment is the bring your own device thing. Like all the security people are like, oh my God, people bringing their own device.
What are we going to do?
People are sent to a conference to go learn about security. And so they go to all the mobile ones because those are the things that they're told are worrying right now. Yeah. So I think that drives it a little. And with that NFC stuff, it was, some interesting things there. There was a guy who basically scanned a bunch of European mobile networks to find what devices were on there. That was kind of interesting. So we would all expect there to be tons of smartphones, right? Your Blackberries and your Androids. Instead, what he found were tons of machine-to-machine devices. So like things that would control power distribution, robots with traffic lights with embedded SIM cards in them, all of that kind of stuff. That's majority of what
Did
you
anyone cover the app that Bain was using in the New York Stock Exchange, well, the Gotham City Stock Exchange to crash? No, sorry, I'm just being silly.
I haven't seen that. See, I've been so completely disconnected from everything except Black Cat.
You haven't even watched Batman? Well, skip Batman.
It's pretty bad.
So what is it like being, a bunch of security experts in Las Vegas? It was kind of a wild, I'm sure great networking, but was a lot of the networking over naked women and
well, actually, so there's a big backlash
Slots.
this year and generally against hacker security cons, geek security cons, I'd say, about the inclusion of women and how, having, women even hinting. So there aren't strippers at most of these events, but like even women doing sexy dances is really exclusionary to women.
Sure.
And one woman went so far to print out a bunch of like creeper cards because she had some bad experiences previous year. So a bunch of people walking around with these red and yellow cards to give to men who are going out of control.
That's very interesting.
The party scene's huge there, and Las Vegas definitely eats people. I've got some pics on my phone of this guy lying at the back of a talk. So he'd made it to the conference, made it to the talk, and he's just lying there with the sunglasses on, collapsed on the floor. But
too much black hatting.
Yeah, personally, this is my
or white hatting, really, I suppose. Yeah.
So I've learned to handle Vegas. I actually find Vegas revolting.
How many of the people there do you think are actually black hat hackers?
It's like it's such a weird terminology. I think there's people there who have committed crimes,
right?
But given the problem of overcriminalization, with the depth to which that's gone, you don't know. People who like engage in full-time crime, I'd probably less of that there. It's probably it's a paid for corporate conference on the Black Hat side. At DEF CON I think you might get a few more, but some of the big things that like are shifting it. So for example, there's a big vulnerability market, so people find vulnerabilities, and it used to be that you'd report them to the vendor, so-called responsible disclosure, and they'd fix it. Now there's good money to be made selling that. So I spend a lot of time speaking to people saying, what kind of rates are you getting for your exploits? One of the things that was clear is that the market's not very consolidated, so that people got wildly different things. But you're looking at like...
Is that happening in South Africa yet on a big scale?
Oh, I think there's definitely people in South Africa selling stuff, but the South African security community is much smaller, much less consolidated than like New Zealand, for example. It's got an amazing security industry. But like, so Intel processor bugs go for sort of over $1 million. This is one of the things I got. Chrome, full end-to-end Chrome exploits for fully patched Chrome are like $200,000. It's interesting hearing what these things go for, and these are the kind of things intelligence agencies buy.
Yeah, Craig, we're in the wrong industries.
Yeah, well, we already knew that. So.
Yeah,
well, those aren't trivial to find.
Yeah, sure. No,
there's a reason they go for that much.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to take a moment here to mention one of our first very fabulous sponsors, Snapdragon from Qualcomm, which powers most of the world's leading smartphones and tablets. And as of course you all know, because you've all been entering every single week, they are giving away a free smartphone or tablet every single week. So all you need to do if you want to win one is head on over to zatechshow.com/Snapdragon and get through the barrier, which is a very complicated puzzle of the kind that a Domonic White could have created. It's so impenetrable, but if you can get through, and I say this is because I couldn't get it in the 10 minutes I tried, and that made me grumpy, but it's very cool, and you can win a free smartphone and tablet, and we are very, very happy to have Snapdragon on board, so do go and check it out one way or the other. Okay, and so back to the news. So yeah, I mean, with all this talk of DTT, other stuff that's been happening this week, MWeb has dropped their prices again for ADSL. Woohoo! I'm a MWeb customer, so that makes me happy. Telkom's share price down. Didn't they drop nearly 9% on a single day, Craig?
Yeah, on Friday. Down at worst, 8.8%, I think it was. Not that it matters too much how specific it was, but yeah, I mean, this is also troubling and vexing, but Telkom's one of our favourite topics. We come back to it time and time again.
I know.
Also because they just keep us busy. There's always something to say about Telkom. I'm not really sure. This one is so loaded too. It just feels like perpetually like government and Telkom are pulling in opposite directions. Of course, in part because of Telkom's ongoing remaining beholden to government, because of government being a majority shareholder in what's otherwise ostensibly still billed as a private company. But things like the KT deal, that you can tell that Telkom's really, really upset about this. Sure, there was a different comms minister at the time that the deal was first spoken about, but government was instrumental in trying to orchestrate it.
Yeah.
And then cabinet turns around and says no, and argues that it's counter to their sort of broadband goals. And you go, well,
for you.
look what KT did in Korea.
Yeah.
I mean, Korea and Japan love to fight each other to try and be the best connected country in the world.
Yeah.
And when you look at the fiber to the home projects there, and Telkom said, I phoned around and spoke to a lot of people last week, and Telkom's previously said that if that KT deal had gone off, they would have had enough. The sort of cash injection would have sustained them for another 3 years.
Not to mention all the know-how of how to build a world-class network. Yeah.
And by canning that deal, you lose the expertise.
So is this what's happening? Is that it's been a bit of a delay, right? I mean that the market now responding to just questions about whether Telkom can maintain the balance between trying to please government and trying to be a good corporate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is that the share price keeps falling because we've got people who want to move out of it. When you look at companies like Vodacom and MTN in particular, the stock's just been going up and up and up. And so it's totally possible to stay in the telecom sector but move your money. And this is what we're seeing people doing. I think a lot of people have decided to cut their losses and get out of Telkom with the 16 or 18 rand or whatever it is on the day.
Yeah.
Which obviously, I mean, you look at the graph, it's just a straight line
it's
down.
40% down, I think. You reported from January.
50% down over the in the past year. You can't really blame people for.
Great time to buy Telkom stock if things go your way.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, clearly I'm not an investor. I don't have stock market.
I'm not either.
Yeah. So I mean, all of this then made me very jealous when I was looking at all the stories about Google Fiber in Kansas City this week, and how there's this beautiful network that they're rolling out, and you hear about the kind of speeds that they can get to your home, and then they give you the whole
Kansas
package.
Of all places,
I know, in
right?
Kansas. Anyway, and you get you can actually stream video to your TV. Imagine, without waiting 4 hours for things to buffer. You could watch the Olympics. Just think. Anyway, so ADSL woes. So off ADSL onto the topic of mobile, which is always a much more happy topic in South Africa. Arthur Goldstuck and World Wide Worx released their report that they release it every 6 months. The mobility, the second half of the mobility study for 2012 about what's happening in mobile in South Africa. I always find it very, very interesting reading. They said that what they've seen in the last, I think it was the last year, it might have been the last 6 months, I'd have to check, is an 8% drop of people's budget going towards voice, and that going straight into spending on data, which is to be expected, and that 41% of people who own cell phones are now browsing on their phones. Very exciting. Yeah. And lots of other little tidbits.
Is that freely available, that report?
You can read summaries of it. If you want the full one, you're going to have to go and make doe eyes at Arthur Goldstuck or purchase it, which I'm sure would make him more happy.
There's quite a lot of the info out there, though, especially in the stories that have been around it. A lot of the key...
What is the purchase price out of interest?
I have no idea.
No,
somebody Google quickly.
Okay, so you guys just pirated.
You have 3 laptops in front of you.
I just went to the event. It's including the new retina one, which I'm trying
today.
not to
I'm very
drool on.
excited.
Yes, I want to hear all about that in a little bit.
We'll get there.
Yeah,
but
you have to show that to
about
everyone.
this mobility, there was some. I saw some of the really interesting stats too, were about what people are using.
Yeah, 38%
WhatsApp.
Facebook now.
WhatsApp was so low last time that they actually just said they put it down as 0% of users, and that was a year ago. And it's now something like, of the phones that are capable of using it, something like 26% of people are
it was something
using
like
it.
Of urban cell phone users, it's like near 40%. It's crazy.
Just enormous.
So
WhatsApp has come from nowhere in a year in SA to be one of the dominant messaging services.
Because BBM obviously was leading for ages, because South Africa is, one of the last markets where BlackBerry is still woohoo. So funnily, I was hanging out in Soweto earlier this week, and I was in Maponya Mall, which if you haven't been is one of the larniest malls in Joburg. It's really cool. And I snapped this photo. Actually, I have it here. I'll show you guys. I was sitting at Nando's and I looked up and I snapped this photo. And every single person who was eating at Nando's had their phone out and was texting. And all of them have Blackberries. It was the most beautiful single picture of this is what the internet is in South Africa.
I find it really depressing, actually.
Why?
I would also, even at Black Hat, you walk past tables and there's literally like 6 people not looking at each other, looking at their phones.
Sure.
And so on the one hand, that's a bit depressing, like the breakdown of social communication.
Sure,
but then you look at like these weird effects that you end up happening, like the Reddit's filter bubble and how it's actually sort of a converging and collapsing of opinions.
Yes. Well, I think
Those sort of things
you
worry
kind
me.
of you filter out anyone who isn't like you, and you end up only listening to following people who share more or less the same things as you are.
Twitter, right? And
Yeah.
I'm actually making an active
an
effort
echo
to try and shake up the
Yeah.
kind of people I follow.
Where are those, fundamentalists and
Follow at
hardcore?
homophobes.
Yeah.
So my friend Jason Finike, at Mulungu,
Yeah.
_Lungu, he says he follows them
He's really
specifically
fun on
for.
Twitter, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says specifically he follows them for to avoid the
Variety,
bubble.
yeah.
But it's
So, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion revived. I mean, there's always been that discussion for as long as the internet's been around of, is the internet making us crazy and antisocial and blah, blah, blah. And it was revived recently by an article in Newsweek, I think, which was kind of a new survey of data about it's making us ADD. We can't focus on anything anymore. We all have 6 devices open. We have to text while driving. We can't even put our phones away while we're hurtling down the highway dodging taxis. So it's a debate that comes up every couple of years or so.
Yeah, I think there's also there's the sort of ownership of it, and there's taking deliberate measures to change some of this behavior. I, for example, in part because of what I do by day, I'm pretty much not on social media on the weekends.
But that's also because you're like a hipster.
I'm just not really, online.
Yeah.
Deliberately.
Yeah.
Because I spend so much time during the week, I find my weekends are precious, and I want to do other things, and I don't want to look at Facebook, and I don't want to look at Google Plus, and I don't even tweet very much on the weekends.
I mean,
I've just split it out.
Dual screening when you're watching TV is one thing, but dual screening your life where you're trying to have play with a kid or have a conversation with a loved one, and you're dual screening is kind of something different.
I also kind of have unless there's a big crowd. If it's a small crowd, it's like no phones in restaurants.
Sure.
I'm not there to talk to other people. I'm there to talk to you.
Yeah.
I remember cutting a date that went really badly because she was a few years younger and she insisted on messaging.
So
and I was like,
I think culture is
why
different
are you here to see me?
on this stuff. I think there's a generation gap because my brother and his girlfriend are never they are with each other. They love each other very much, but I've never seen them together not on their phones. And sometimes IMing each other across the table.
Right.
It is. It's a Gen Y. I mean, we're all Gen Y pretty much here, but. Yeah.
A friend of mine installed a 3G signal jammer in his kid's bedroom just so they'd go to sleep.
Wow.
I want those in cinemas and theatres and concert halls.
Yeah, totally.
Can we not just put a Faraday cage or something in and just block the signal? And then we don't have to worry about people forgetting to put their phone on silent.
If we think that people can't control their urge to smoke because it's a physical addiction thing, and we think that the internet might do something similar to our brains, that constant dopamine kick that we get from checking stuff, then surely we can, have the same legislation place, like only checking your phone 5 meters outside the door of the restaurant, if we think of it in a similar way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it has
warnings.
the same health downsides. It's just sort of antisocial downsides.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Research goes both ways. I think so. There's a great piece floating around the internet somewhere about the difference between a maker's schedule and a manager's schedule, and how the workplace works on a manager's schedule because that's how it is, where your whole day is broken into these 30-second chunks, and you try and squeeze as many different meetings into those 30-second chunks as you can. So you kind of block up your whole diary. Whereas to be a maker, so a developer or an artist or someone who's having to actually think up stuff, you really need uninterrupted 4 hours to even get into that zone before you can do anything. And how the kind of the manager's schedule of constant email must be in touch all the time. It just destroys our ability to do anything productively. And questions about how you balance that, because you do still need managers in workplaces apparently.
That's exactly it, and that's the other reason for my sort of weekend behavior. I just, for my personal projects, this is the only way to get them done. Is to just ignore a lot of the digital, outside of the hours. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. It's just too easy to waste half an hour on Twitter on a Saturday morning looking at people's breakfasts.
Stop tweeting about your breakfast if you're tweeting about your breakfast. I know.
No, I must just stop following you, right?
No,
this is the wrong end of the problem. Right?
Instant unfollow.
You say that. Yeah. But I've raised several times to Justin Spratt that I do not want to know when he's had a hiccup. And to this day, he still tweets when he's had a hiccup. And he's got a healthy follower count.
Anyway.
But
I don't think it's that unusual.
Okay, follicle count, yeah.
Whenever I look at weblog stats or anything like that, I see a spike Monday morning. People get into work and the first thing they do is they fire up their email and their Twitter and all that stuff. They don't necessarily do it as after hours.
You're rebelling against the sense of being back at work on a Monday. Will not engage my brain. So, I mean, what tactics do you guys use in your own lives to try and restrict this? Do you have, so you say weekends, do you actually put your phone away?
No, I mean, I have it on me. I just sort of, it's often on silent, and I just ignore the notifications.
Yeah.
Tweetbot pops up things. I'll look at them on Monday. Again, unless it's important. I sort of contribute a little bit, I suppose. I Instagram pics and so on, but I don't engage. I try not to actually read any streams.
Yeah.
And my email gets mostly ignored.
So I have a friend who takes a media holiday every Saturday. So no TV either, no newspapers, no media at all. Like total media diet. Phone goes in a drawer, and it's because he's got 2 young kids and he kind of wants to be present and. And also he finds, he also kind of works in advertising, and that his life is generally just too stimulated with too much media all the time, and he needs to take a break from it once a week.
Well, that's another good one that helps. I don't own a TV. Makes a
me
huge
neither.
difference. I don't have a television, so if I close this screen, then I don't have any screens. I can't slump down in front of something and be passive.
So you don't have a large screen for like just consuming digital media.
I have a slightly larger computer screen, but it's mostly just used as a secondary display. I actually, I realized until May this year, I hadn't even watched a legally downloaded series.
Oh, interesting.
I spent the first 5 months this year not watching anything.
Wow.
And then with winter, that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But
See, that's
helped a lot too.
I don't own a TV, but I have a projector, and I do watch a lot of series, so it's not quite the same thing. Dom, what do you do?
Well, I don't know. So I'm actually really bad at it.
Yeah.
I wish to be better at it.
Yeah.
I think it's a discipline thing,
Yeah.
and for me, particularly it's stuff like Black Hat, when you see great people producing great research. And then you chat to them. I've never met anyone who produces incredible stuff, so the maker side of thing, who is regularly plugged in to media.
I have an exception. Lauren Bjerkes writes incredible local fiction. She is always on Twitter. I don't know when she does
Such a
it.
professional crush.
I know. Anyway.
But how many books has she written?
2.
3.
Yeah,
Are
so
they?
the Zoo City.
Third one's finished.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Oh, yes, sure, fair enough. Yeah, she's published too.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not so interested in commenting on other people's lives.
I mean, she edits the big issue still. I don't know.
But I know
if
what you mean. So the point, right?
Yeah.
So she seems to be, and a couple of people I followed, some of them through her actually, like Chuck Wendig.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. They're just on Twitter all the time, but somehow producing. And I'm amazed. Some of the, even some of the local Twitterati.
Yeah.
God, to use that horrible phrase, I apologize.
Who is the local Twitterati?
Some of the, like the serious, the hardcore freelance writers who you see in every weekend paper and who seem to have a column in every magazine.
Sure.
And I'm just amazed that they seem to also be ever present on Twitter.
Yeah.
And if I come on in one of those rare instances that I'm on at 10 at night, they're there. And when I wake up in the morning, they're there. And they're just always busy on it. I think it does. Maybe it works for some people. It doesn't work for me.
There does seem to be a clear difference between people who need to produce other media, benefiting from being connected to media, and then actually like creating something. So, like research in my field, for example, like being connected to Twitter all the time is a complete distraction. You need that 4-hour block.
Sure.
So I don't know. Maybe
it's different if you're writing about culture and you're writing about Twitter and what people are saying on Twitter. Which some of these
like I
people
see some journalists, so just tweet out, "Oh, my column's due tomorrow," and you got an idea.
Sure.
And they
Can be
might
very
get
useful. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Speaking about TVs, we were talking earlier. We actually had a question from our chat room, which I want to honor. I don't know if either of you guys know anything about this, Craig. You might not, because you're not a TV guy.
I'm actually just a terrible AV guy. It's the one. It's my sort of Achilles heel in my otherwise adequate tech knowledge. I know nothing about AV.
Okay, well, you're going to be no help to us. The chat room asked, what is the best deal you can get locally on a thin bezel 40-inch TV/monitor? Dom, do you know?
Well, that's uber detailed, but for what it's worth...
That sounds like a yes,
More
though.
or less.
Coding Horror, the blog published a thing about these... Also, my AV stuff's a bit crap. But so the Retina displays, from Korea, you can get Retina-style big-ass TVs for uber cheap. It's on Coding Horror's blog. I think it was the last blog.
I want to move your
really
hyphen in that so that they're ass TVs.
Assorted?
Sorry, you were saying.
I'll see if I can get the link. That's probably the best I can do. Otherwise, I'm not so bright with the AV stuff. But mostly because computer scientists aren't. Like if you actually read about TV specs and the hacks that go on to try and make things display correctly, it's disgusting.
Disgusting tech.
Well, so I'm actually kind of interested in this because, shock horror, I'm considering buying a bigger screen.
Oh, it's the beginning of the end, Craig.
For these cold, occasional, lonesome winter nights.
You could get a cat.
I have that's a whole separate. I have a cat I'm trying to catch.
Okay.
Or recapture, should I say?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of getting a 32-inch TV to use as a secondary monitor.
Right.
But there's this problem of resolution because I'm not sure if 32 at 1080p is going to be sufficient to use for my regular work as home as well.
Right.
So there's, I mean, I did a bit of reading about it, and it's a bloody minefield. What I ended up doing is I took my computer in and I plugged it in, and I went, make it display like a monitor.
You didn't bring your Retina display to show them. I want it to look like
No.
that. Give me that.
I only got it today.
But big.
But there's like with Samsung, there's some hack where it looks terrible when you first plug it in, then you have to press some unknowable option on the OCD, and then eventually it looks
Samsung
beautiful.
TVs are actually too complicated. They've overcomplicated themselves.
Okay. Well, perhaps this is what to do. I'll just go in with a mini DisplayPort to DVI adapter and cable and annoy some sales staff. This sounds like quite a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
I would recommend finding the right sales guy.
Right, the right
Yeah.
sales guy. Yeah. Although I wonder about that too. So what we see, what I see and speaking to people in stores occasionally is that most people are doing all their research beforehand and come in knowing what they want.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to do this actual hands-on thing because I'm sure most of you are the same. I very seldom go into a store and ask for advice anymore.
No.
I know what I want. I know what
Exactly.
product number I want. I go in and I say, I just shop around for where I can get that product the cheapest.
Yeah. So we did some work with Nike recently, and they say people are the same with shoes. I mean, running shoes have to be one of the most technical pieces of clothing that anyone can own, and no one asks. We went in and spoke to some of the shop attendants a couple of weeks ago, and they sounded a bit forlorn. They spend a lot of time learning about all the shoes, and they're like, no, people just come in and tell us the number.
That's good. Well, I'm going to make someone's day. I'm in the market for some new running
There
shoes
we
after
go.
I destroyed them hiking this weekend.
Yeah.
So
No, you don't go hiking in your running shoes. Greg.
that's one of the lessons
There's
gleaned.
your problem. Okay,
No,
interesting.
the Nike store in Las Vegas is a sight to behold.
Really?
I mean, so they've got this, you can make your own shoe thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I've seen that.
put a
Those are
sole
the
on
colours.
ID, Nike
these colors.
ID, yeah.
No,
Which
that's-
they
there are
yeah.
1,000 options. And then you've even got like a basketball court, so you can make your own shoe and then try it on and dunk. And
You've seen those shoes that I don't know what they're called. I think they have a basketball version where they have sensors embedded throughout the shoe, so they can tell you about how your foot moves while you play.
well, so Nike used to have those little Nike sensors that you put in your running shoe.
Nike Plus.
And it's now called Nike Plus. I think it was called.
Okay, right.
Yeah. But now their new shoe has those sensors. I think it's like 6 sensors on your heel and 4 in the front.
So cool.
something like
See,
that.
running is just such a good geek sport because you can get so obsessive.
Oh man, I'm fully augmented when I run now. I've got the fuel band, I've got the sensors in there, and I've got the Nike GPS app all.
Has the
running
fuel
with me.
band changed how your day goes, like how you live your life in a very basic way?
Not at all, but it tells me it gives me a good idea as to how things are going. Like when I'm feeling absolutely exhausted and I don't know why, sometimes now I know why.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I know the geeks are terribly fond of them at the moment. Every time
I love it.
anyone's going to America, that seems to be the most
Yeah.
asked for item to bring back.
Yeah, and then, no, they're not doing them at just New York anymore, so they're pretty
really?
easy to get. And it's a really cool watch.
Yeah, I have a little bit of FOMO. With
My only worry is it looks a little bit too much like a power bracelet still.
Yeah, I know.
I really don't want people to make that
Heaven
mistake.
forbid someone thinks that you're wearing a power bracelet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heaven forbid
Yeah,
indeed.
indeed. I just want to take another quick break and thank our second sponsor, who is Sharp Interactive. And they, if you don't know, have quite recently launched a very cool interactive LED TV screen thing. It's really cool. And also giving away free stuff because our sponsors are amazing. If you want to go and win one of those awesome interactive monitors, then you need to go to sharpinteractive.co.za, and there, you can go and get stuff there. So they're also cool, and we love them too. So thank you to them for hosting us because we like doing what we do. So it's great that they let us do it. Okay, so we have to talk about Mountain Lion. We do. I'm sorry, haters
And I might
who
drag us
think
back
we talk about Apple
to some
too
of the
much.
phone
But
stuff just now.
yeah,
but
let's talk about
Mountain
phones, and we can talk about Windows 8 to just balance it out. So
I prefer thinking of Mountain Lion as a friend, so it's me as Bergliu.
Bergliu.
That's got a nice ring to
Everything
it.
is funnier in Afrikaans.
Right?
I'd love to see a 50 Shades of Grey translation into Afrikaans. Total segue, sorry. By the way, there's two wonderful things on the internet you can combine. So the one is a 50 Shades of Grey paragraph generator, which generates randomized, very bad sex scenes. And it's something that you can combine it with, as one of my Twitter followers pointed out, is the Irmagerd translator, which translates everything into Irmagerd speak. So if you combine those, you'd end up with great fun. Sorry, total sidetrack. Mountain Lion. So everyone I know who's installed Mountain Lion is grumpy with it. And I think the reason is that most of my friends are developers and scripts are breaking. Have either of you, you haven't installed?
I haven't installed
No,
Mountain Lion.
even with your shiny MacBook Pro with a Retina display, you bitch.
We're still in South Africa, so even if I wanted to, I'd have to download it.
Yeah.
This is true. I've actually got an install ready to go. I just haven't done it yet because I'm still busy getting my machine in order. I don't want to do an upgrade. I want to do a fresh install.
Sure.
And
Do you have a copy here?
I do. We'll talk about that just now. But I have fiddled with it on other people's machines. I haven't seen the hugest. Obviously, the big difference, really, I gather from most people, is the notifications. And I'm told that they've sorted out iMessage, which I suppose is interesting. I mean, I've found my own use of it, even when they did integrate iMessage. And obviously, I have all sorts of iDevices, so I do use it quite a lot with other Apple users. I haven't really been using it on desktop. And I mean, it's terribly convenient to be able to type an SMS type message on a desktop.
Yeah.
I just don't really do it. I don't really know why. I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe I'll use it more with Mountain Lion when the notifications are there. But
might help. Yeah.
Well, if you look at WhatsApp, for example, I mean, so me and some geeks have an interest in making WhatsApp available and non-phone bound sort of thing.
I'd be interested in this.
And yeah, it's
You can use Mixit on. Sorry, some people. Some.
does it have a mixer to WhatsApp bridge?
I don't know.
I don't think it
so.
does
No, I don't
because
think so.
Yeah.
so what it turns out WhatsApp we've eventually figured out what it makes your password because it doesn't actually store it in any sort of legitimate way. Anyway, but just given the number of people who, like when I tweeted about it, contacted me saying, "Oh, are you working on this? I'm interested in working on this." I can imagine iMessage must have the same sort of appeal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And well, actually, that's the point. So I suppose I would be interested because I actually started out using WhatsApp on an iPad because I didn't actually at the time. Strange circumstance. I got an iPad before I got a phone that could do WhatsApp. So I used to use WhatsApp on a tablet, and I really liked it because for a start, I could type at a rate of knots that I just can't on a phone.
Yeah.
And I would certainly be interested in WhatsApp on a desktop. So you'd certainly think
It
I
would
would
speed
integrate
up-
iMessage more.
It would speed up sexting. You know.
Well, I don't know about one-handed typing on
Yeah,
a
fair
big
enough.
Sexting
keyboard.
where you only type 6 words at a time.
Exactly.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I'm just going to smile and nod. Okay, so yeah, I think the iCloud integration is most interesting to me because I still have no idea what iCloud is for. I know what it's for in theory. I know what it's supposed to do. I just have never found a time when it would seem useful to me.
Well, you know when it's really useful
Yeah.
is like when you got a calendar invite in your one mailbox or on your phone
I use
and you
Gmail.
need somewhere else.
Everything on Google.
Yeah,
so everything's
sure.
synced
I
already.
guess not
Well, and this
everybody
is what they want to get
use
you
it.
off.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I use it for. I like.
They do want to get us off.
They do.
One-handedly.
Yes, one-handedly
Yeah.
with six word
Six-word
messages.
combinations.
I
Wait.
now you've lost. Now you've thrown me.
They got you off
One?
topic.
iMessage.
I put 6 words. Sorry, this is going to bug me.
20 words,
You're going to have to
6
tell me
words.
afterwards.
Oh well, that's all right. It'll come back to me.
Anyway, yeah, so Mountain Lion, massive amount of downloads. Obviously, yes, go.
So
yes.
iCloud. I really like PhotoStream. That PhotoStream function is great. Take a photo
Ah.
on iPhone and then fiddle with it on iPad.
Maybe
I
should
find
give
that
a
really
go.
handy. And it's pretty. It's as it should be, completely effortless. Once it's set up, it just pushes. iCloud's been frustrating because my phone and tablet are wanting to back up to it, and they keep telling me it's full.
Yeah, mine
Curiously,
too.
though, the PhotoStream still works. It will still stream your last 30 days of content or 1,000 pictures.
That's interesting.
Whichever is the more applicable figure, regardless of whether your iCloud is full. My iCloud's been full for 4 months now in terms of backups. But the stream still works. And I find that really nice because, especially if you're doing just basic edits to your pictures and you're using something like, what's that great editing app? It doesn't matter. Any of the photo editing apps. They're often a lot easier to use on iPad.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that the images just push straight across. I find that really handy. But I agree. The same reason I don't really use iCloud for anything else is Google. My life's already
Yeah.
locked into Google. My
Google
calendar,
owns my life.
my mail, notes and things. I suppose notes as well. The notes syncing across devices is
Evernote.
nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There are other existing options
we were
for
on
this.
the cloud before Apple got there. Sorry. Now Apple, for the early adopters, I'm sure this is a problem. is
But
that Apple is now
arguably,
trying to disrupt our behavior.
For the late adopters, this
Yeah,
is another
it's
way
pretty
they
cool.
will lock you in.
Sure,
If
totally.
you haven't been using this sort of thing,
Yeah.
it'll do.
Yeah.
But at least what I found, so I'm sometimes an early adopter, not always. But when I move, so like now I move to this new MacBook, maybe I won't install Evernote because now all that functionality is built in somewhere else. I mean, I probably will here, but
Yeah.
like that's the kind of thing that incrementally shifts you off because it only
Sure.
just gets robust.
Yeah.
But I want to say, like iCloud drives me off the wall sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
have you guys run into a problem where you can't delete a meeting? It says like CalDAV right
Yes.
queue error 403 denied.
Yes, I have actually.
Yeah.
It gets angry at me. I'm like, no, I don't want to go to that meeting. Screw you.
And it's like,
Even using Google stuff, I can't accept Gmail invites often on my devices. It'll just say just computer says no. Just will not let me do it. I can see them, and everything syncs otherwise across. If I create a new event on either of the devices, it's fine. But if someone sends me an email invite to a meeting and I try and say yes on my iPhone or my iPad, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've given up trying to figure it out. I don't let it upset me.
So very quickly, while we're still on the topic of Apple, we should mention that there are new rumors again, yawn, of the iPhone 5.
And some pics going around, yeah.
And some pictures. And I read something about a rumor of an iPad mini. I don't believe it.
iPad mini.
Mini.
Small, like a set to compete with the 7-inch tablets.
No, I just.
There's
don't
been
see
a
Apple
lot
doing
of talk about that lately,
I
but
know.
well, I mean, you know
Let's
our
help.
stance, Sam. We don't deal in rumor.
I disagree. I keep saying that we should have to write down our predictions and put them in a big jar in the middle of the table. And every week when something new happens, we should check and see if anyone was
how we're
wrong
doing.
and have to pay fines. Anyway, just me.
Yeah, accountability on predictions. That would be great.
Exactly. But let's not talk about predictions. Let's talk about picks of the week. It is that time. Who am I going to pick on first? Dom. Picks of the week.
All right, so I had to think about a pick of the week because you told me I have to have one.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just so autocratic like that. Sorry.
Truthfully, I could talk about. I've been on here so long, I could talk about lots of things. But the one I decided to pick because I like choosing something a bit more geeky.
Yeah.
So I think I picked GitHub last time. So this time I'm choosing Homebrew for OS X. So anyone who runs a Mac computer and either wants to get into Unixy stuff or used to run Linux or something like that, Homebrew is a really nice option. So the options beforehand were Think and Mac ports. The problem there is they install like an entire mini operating system in a subdirectory. So what Homebrew does is it integrates with your existing libraries on OS X, so it doesn't install duplicates and things like that. And then it's all based off of Git, so you can like edit what are called the brews to install different software and push it up as a pull request really easily. It's just a really elegant, great solution for people using OS X who want to install Unix-like software. So if you want to get into it or you are a Linux user, I'd recommend Homebrew.
Good pick. Good to have a very geeky pick occasionally. Yeah.
Well, this is good, and it also gets me off the hook for my not especially geeky pick.
Well, mine is not even in the tech industry at all. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, as you know, I'm a reformed or recovering music journalist, and something fun arrived on my desk a week or two ago, and it was a pair of headphones made by Marshall, the amplifier manufacturers. And you can have a look at them at marshallheadphones.com. And they were endorsed by the late, I think it was Jim Marshall, who died actually just before they came out. And I'm a little bit suspicious generally of these sort of brand tie-ins. And you go, well, is it really a product that's representative of the brand, or is it just leveraging the brand name to try and flog product? And they're really good. I've given them to, I live with a bit of an audiophile, and he keeps nicking them. He likes them so much. And the other reason I like them, and I think they're worth mentioning, is they're really simple. And they're not as flashy as Beats. They don't look as ridiculous and huge. They're just really simple. They do what it says on the box. They sound incredibly good, and they cost 1,000 rand, which sure is still a lot for headphones, but when you compare it to the top end Sennheisers or the top end Beats or this sort of thing, it's not completely astronomical. And they just really seem like a pretty good quality to price ratio. And I know headphones are terribly hot at the moment. Everyone's trying to make them. But these have really impressed me. I've been using them more than I would even usually use headphones. The other day I did that disgusting thing where I went to the shops wearing headphones.
Big ones.
So I wouldn't have to over the ear, yeah.
Oh,
very
that's
90s.
embarrassing.
So I wouldn't
Very
have to
90s,
I wouldn't have to, deal with
your
the
pants hanging below your knees.
crazy
as well.
mamas in Killarney Mall. But
Noise cancelling?
they don't have noise cancelling actually sort of built in, but the cushioning is quite good in terms of blocking out extraneous noise, but also in terms of keeping the noise in, which I quite like. I really dislike it when I can hear other people's always, it seems, awful music.
But your music is surely amazing.
No,
so
this is it. I'm sure my
gifting
music sounds awful
the
to people
universe.
too, but at least I'm trying to be considerate and spare them
Yeah.
from having to deal with whatever horrors I've decided to inflict on my ears that day. But they're pretty good at keeping the sound in, they're pretty good at keeping the sound out, and I just feel like in a world where we've been convinced that it's acceptable to spend 2,000-3,000 rand on a pair of headphones, if you want to spend quite a lot of money on a pair of headphones, but not quite that much money, these are kind of fun, and there's an element of geek cool if you like the sort of Marshall brand and you had visions of the logo on a big stack of amplifiers and that never happened, well, you can have a little piece of it this way.
Oh, it's a good pick. Just one pick each? Wow, I'm so impressed. I have two, which is quite restrained for me. My first pick is related to Women's Day next week. If you know a young girl between the ages of 12 and 14 years old...
I'm told that's frowned upon for people my age.
Excuse me, let me continue. A organization in Joburg called Digital Divas is running a free coding workshop, which is very cool. We need to get more young girls coding.
So talk of this. This is a great initiative. Yeah.
It's really great. There's still a lot of room for people who want to sign up. So Digital Divas, if you search that, you will find the event. So if you're around Josie and you know some females between 12 and 14, drag them away from Justin Bieber videos for a day and let them learn to code. It is the single most important skill they could be learning right now, probably.
Sorry.
Maybe. What? Did you find another pick?
I did. No, I just thought of it. I've been thinking about it. I used to have a note on my phone for picks so that I would have ones prepared, and I just thought of another one. But anyway.
You can have another pick. I'll get back
to it. It's
to
okay,
you
but you'll talk about your second one first.
My second pick has nothing to do with tech. So I went to go and watch the Batman movie this weekend, and I was really disappointed. So then I went and watched Cabin in the Woods, and it is the best movie I've seen in ages, and it's Joss Whedon. So that's why I think it's acceptable.
I didn't know it was a Whedon. You're the
second
person to tell me it's the best movie they've seen in ages.
It is. Just go and watch it. Go in with no expectations. Don't read anything about it. Just go and watch it. It will make you very happy. And understand that it is a comedy, not a horror.
Okay.
Because we were in the cinema with people who thought it was a horror, and we're getting very annoyed with how much we were laughing.
I find I usually can't tell the difference. Aren't most horrors just funny?
No, but yeah, it's a great movie. Go watch it. Anyway.
Because then there's thrillers, right? Thrillers are actually sort of stressful sometimes. I find that the whole horror genre just seems to be comedy.
It depends if it's Japanese. If it's Japanese, it can actually be, or Serbian.
Right.
Don't
or
ever
Serbian.
watch Serbian
No,
horror
I'm
movies.
too sensitive for horrors. Those things scare the pants off of me.
I believe that's the point. Craig, you had a second pick. I will allow it because I'm the boss.
Yeah, well, this is nice, and you're a nice boss.
I know.
I've heard talk.
I know.
I'd like a race.
So, and this one's maybe a little contentious, and some people are going to argue with me, but I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll tell you why I think it's a pick. And it's the fact that they finally made a version of the Tweetbot client for Mac. It's been out for iDevices for a while, and a lot of people, including me, are pretty evangelical about it. Just because it does a lot of things, it does all the important things in Twitter really well. And in my case, my favorite thing about it is it lets you mute hashtags. And I find this is an incredible improver of your experience of Twitter. And one of the reasons that there's all this talk about Twitter actually limiting use of the API, because depending on how they go for monetizing, they don't want you to be able to block things.
That's very interesting.
But the desktop, the other reason I like it is that it is less so than it was 2 weeks ago, but it's still a little bit buggy. And I kind of like the fact that they're just putting it out there and saying, well, you've been shouting for long enough, so you're just going to have to deal with it. If you like it enough to use it, you're going to have to deal with the odd issue, and we're going to try and iron them out as quickly as possible, and then you can pay for it. But in the meantime, here, have it for free, and obviously try and help us out in the process.
Good approach.
But, I really like it.
I love the idea of muting hashtags.
Yep.
If you're not into the Olympics, would be.
For example, so
I'm
I'm not into most sport.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I don't mind if you are. I see the appeal. Great. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And so progressively, my stream has gotten better and better, especially for the few times I'm on weekends, because I can mute your Liverpool FC football, hashtag. And a lot of people are very thoughtful, and they do hashtag their sport to participate in the conversation. And this sort of thing, any sort of niche topic. The other problem is journos. I follow an awful lot of journos, not just tech journos, but sometimes I end up with half a dozen people at the same press conference. And you also don't have to mute them forever. It gives you the option of muting them for, I forget what the breakdown is, but say 30 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, forever.
Very
so
nice.
you can mute one hashtag for an hour, and it cleans up your whole stream if there's an event going on right then and there that you actually just don't want to follow. I think it's the best feature. It's the feature that made me switch as many of my devices as possible to that app and to pay for it on each device.
That is a very good pick and a surprising one, Craig. Well done. Before we wrap up the show, I have one last question for each of you, which is that if you were in the Olympic Games, what sport would you be participating in? Go Dom.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Awesome.
Nice.
Love it, Craig.
Nice. Can I pick one of two?
You can.
Either curling or underwater hockey.
Awesome. Both awesome. And with that,
and you, Sam?
I can't participate in any sport.
I can see you as an archer.
The twirly ribbon thing, just because it's so silly. It's so silly. Why is
Rhythmic
that a sport?
gymnastics.
Oh yeah, you know
what is the
about.
twirly rhythm thing?
Have you seen that gymnastic event where they like tiny little women and they have
like
twirly
a
ribbons,
20-foot long ribbon, and the idea is to keep it off the ground and make patterns with it.
Who decided that could be a sport?
So
Why
actually
can that be a sport?
I have a niece who does this.
Really?
Yep, she's coming down with the Namibian national squad, and I get to go and watch her.
It's so news.
My alma mater
But if
next
she's
week.
little, then it's cute, you know. But if
Sure.
you're still like 25 and you're twirling ribbons at the Olympics,
Right.
you've taken it a bit seriously. I just want to say. Anyway, and I think that's all we have time for tonight. So Domonic White, the whitest, hattest hacker that I know, thank you so much for joining us here through your sleepiness.
You're welcome.
It was great fun hearing about all the ins and outs of the dark underworld of security. So I hope you join us again. And Mr. Craig Wilson from Tech Central. You are, Dom, you're Sing on Twitter, right? Singe, sorry. I was ready to Sing. And Craig is at Craig Wilson.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you want to follow them, they're both quite amusing. And I'm Sam Beckbessinger, @greenham_Sam. So that's it. The ZA Tech Show is made possible by Snapdragon from Qualcomm. Win a new tablet or smartphone by visiting zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon. And by Sharp. Check out the amazing new Sharp Interactive LED at sharpinteractive.coza.
Thanks, sponsors.
Yeah, thanks, sponsors. We heart you big. Cool. Good night.